Talk about what's going on. So one of the main things going on right now is this conservative civil war, as they're calling it, that was kind of sparked when Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show.
Of course. The issue here is that Tucker Carlson decided to normalize and fluff Nick Fuentes, and that the Heritage Foundation then decided to robustly defend that performance. Those who criticize both Tucker and Heritage aren't canceling. They are quite properly drawing a moral line.
And as of yesterday, I think it was the 4th most viewed video that Tucker's ever done. So, that's a pretty large. And it wouldn't really be that much to talk about, except then like people like Ben Shapiro and Mark Levine come out and start calling him the most dangerous anti-Semitic person on earth.
We cancel stuff all the damn time. Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters, American haters, Churchill haters. You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes. They call themselves the Groypers. They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, Hindus, many types of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's Constitution. They admire Hitler and Stalin. And that splinter faction is now being facilitated and normalized within the mainstream Republican Party. The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend. And Tucker Carlson last week was aided, abetted, celebrated for normalizing Nazism within the Republican Party by the mainstay organization of the traditional right, the Heritage Foundation.
And because Nick Fuentes, well, it is, in my opinion, because Nick Fuentes used to say that, kind of Jews were the problem. I definitely don't think Jews are the problem. It's really easy to take him out of context because he does say things like, the Jews stick together and like, are we going to be Americans or are we going to be Jews? And, he says things that definitely sound pretty offensive. And he does say some things that are offensive for sure. I certainly don't agree with a lot of his stance. But there's one thing that it's pretty hard to disagree with, and that is that Israel has way too much of a hand in our country, that we are doing way too much to help them and not really, it isn't really in our interest. And for the last 60 years, it's pretty much been, it's been the Zionist kind of movement in our country has had a major hand. I mean, if you don't know a whole lot about AIPAC, the Israel kind of Political Action Committee, it's not required to register under the foreign under the rules that all countries have to register. It's called FARA. I can't remember what it stands for, but they don't have to register. And each person in Congress has their own handler from AIPAC. And every time somebody gets elected to Congress, they take them to Israel for a couple weeks. And the fact that we always do what's good for Israel has been so baked into our country for so long that the younger generation is starting to wake up to the fact that they don't really do anything for us. I mean, it doesn't help us. It's not that Israel's evil or anything, although the genocide that everybody saw them do, you could sure make the mistake of thinking they're evil. And when you find out how much Israel's government really kind of let October 7th happen so that they could prosecute this war, if you can call it a war. I hate to think it was all just so American investment firms could get in on the ground floor, turning Gaza into beachfront property. I really don't even think that things are that evil. I mean, I've got a pretty conspiracy-minded mind. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people know that in 1963, JFK was assassinated. A lot of people don't know that he had been trying to get the American Zionist Council, which was the precursor to AIPAC, to register as a foreign lobby. And they had been refusing and putting it off, and they had nuclear weapons, and we wanted our inspectors to be able to go in and see what they had, because they still are not technically considered a nuclear power, even though everybody knows they have nukes. So when Kennedy died, so did that issue. And the American Zionist Council went on not registering as a foreign lobby, and no inspectors went to Israel. So one could easily surmise that Israel may have had a part in the conspiracy that killed JFK. And if they did, it's pretty easy to look at the Charlie Kirk thing and think, well, these things are, they have a lot of similarities. I mean, when you look into the JFK assassination, as I have done, and actually the most watched video on my channel is about JFK, the assassination and the movie. And I have a 10-minute long video that short was pulled from that isn't available to see in the US. But if you look into the JFK assassination, you really quickly, I mean, I thought it was just a given thing that everybody these days knew that it was a conspiracy. Exactly who did it and stuff is still up, in the air. But it makes sense that our government still won't release all the files about it if it has things about Mossad and stuff in there. I saw a thing, I guess it was a Candace video, where she went into this article about this guy, and basically kind of that Mossad was like involved in the creation of the Jewish state, that there was evil done. I mean, if you don't know, when they formed Israel, all of the people that lived there that were not Jews were either killed or run off, or imprisoned. Their land was taken from them and annexed as Israel. And Israel has been, since that day, trying to expand the size of Israel, the whole Greater Israel Project. They're now calling the West Bank Judea and Samaria, which is what it was called in, biblical times. Obviously, you know what happened in Gaza. I mean, they killed so many people and blew up so many buildings that there's really nothing left there. But so the AIPAC, pressure that has existed for a very long time on all of our governmental members. I mean, they pay people like $5 million to help them get elected into a Senate or Congress seat, and then they obviously have them vote the way they want. And the Epstein thing, I think people don't even realize what that really is. That was the mechanism by which Israel got leverage over lots of people, but specifically American politicians. And I don't know what to think about Trump, maybe, whatever. But so all this stuff is tied together. And there are a lot of people that seem to not since 1963, we've kind of been under Israel's thumb. And then, Charlie Kirk was turning against Israel. He was getting pressured by Zionists. If you don't know what a Zionist is, Zionists are people that are trying to make the one and only state, Israel, safe and strong and protected and bigger and all that stuff. So Zionists is just another way of saying pro-Israeli people. They don't have to be Jews, but obviously, being a Jewish state, most of the people that live there and are pro there are Jewish. So the Epstein thing ties into all of it. And then the Charlie Kirk thing, I mean, that's I made a video about this. It was like 35 minutes long, and I talked about how Israel had reason to want him silenced. Obviously, as of now, there's no way to say who did what. But the more that they tried to make the narrative that the guy they have locked up is the one and only killer, the more I feel like we're looking at JFK modern. But if you look into the JFK thing, you see that like the bullet that they had was literally in pristine condition and found beside his body after he was dead in the hospital. Bullets don't fall out of you after you die, and they don't not have any damage. But that's the bullet that they were able to say what gun it came from. So obviously that bullet was placed there, period. I mean, it's obvious. It's not possible. Just like with the Charlie Kirk thing, a .30-06 round doesn't go halfway through your soft neck tissue and then stop. That's the kind of thing that happens. And I've seen a bunch of interviews of guys that were in Dealey Plaza who had supplied weapons for the CIA and done all kinds of stuff like that, talking about how you can take a .22 bullet, you can fire it from a .22 caliber gun, and then you can take it so it'll have the striation marks from the original weapon. There's a way to put it in a barrel that's just slightly too big and fire it out, and so it won't get new rifling marks, so it'll look like it came from the first gun, but it's basically a pre-fired and re-racked round. And you can do all kinds of stuff with low powder loads where bullets can be fired, where it's a .30-06 bullet, but it came out of a tiny little pistol that's not even a pistol. It's just a little thing that has a barrel like this long and a hammer to strike a striking pin to strike the bullet. And that's not really a gun, but it'll fire a bullet. And I mean, there's a video of a guy at the Charlie Kirk thing. I'm not saying this is what happened, but there's video of a guy right when he got shot. This guy like pointed his wrist at him and made some motion. I mean, it looks like it was obvious that's what happened, but I haven't heard much about that since then, so I don't know. But like they could do stuff like that 60 years ago. So just imagine what they could do now. I mean, they could have hacked every single phone in that place and put POV video on all of them of something that didn't actually happen. And Charlie Kirk, my opinion is that he is not dead. That's my opinion. Either he really did believe they were going to kill him, like people are saying, like Candace said, he said, he was afraid of. And so he went ahead and just did it himself. Except obviously didn't actually get shot. Trump getting shot in Pennsylvania, like all of these things, I don't really believe in coincidences exactly. So if something looks like a certain thing, if it's crafted to look a certain way, then there is a motive from a different thing. And, the JFK, I've been learning about the JFK conspiracy since I was like 7. My dad believed it was a conspiracy. He was 18 in 1963, and so it was like a defining event of his life. And to the day he died, he remembered exactly where he was when he heard about that, when everybody heard Walter Cronkite say what had happened. And the world has gotten so crazy since then, but with the, ability of global banking to go from one, reserve currency to another, And I mean, there has been a new world order for a long time, really, with basically America at the top and then everything structured around us. It seems like that's changing. The thing that I still am trying to figure out is there a room of, is there a group of people that are like the richest, most powerful, tentacles into everything people, like, 10, 20, 30 of the people that you've never heard of that are like, billionaires at least, but generational wealth that's been around for hundreds of years, just passed down in a family over and over and over. Is there a group of those people that literally meet and decide how the world's going to go and then use the force, technology, money, power that they have to carry it out? Or is it just a bunch of crazy stuff and it's not as organized as it sometimes seems like it is? Because it very frequently, go back to 2007 or 2017. I'm not really sure of the exact time period. I was just looking into this stuff. I feel like my brain just stopped working. But there started to be events that didn't make sense. The reason Alex Jones thought that Sandy Hook was not a real thing is because it would make perfect sense for powerful or government people to start having events like that occur to keep us distracted from the actual stuff going on, to have, it gives focus and it creates even more fracture among people and fear and all that stuff. And if you're trying to control people, that's the stuff that you would use, assuming you were evil. I wouldn't do that. I would try to do it the right way and it might not work, who knows? But trying to remember where I was going. So if you continue down, like Charlie Kirk getting shot really brought, obviously October 7th and then the whole war against Hamas or genocide, however it is you want to say it. I was shocked to hear Charlie Kirk, like very soon after it happened, say something like, that they're gonna want to commit genocide because of this type of thing. He went on the PBD podcast and said that there's no way that Hamas could have gotten in and done what they did without help from Israel somehow. And I agree with that, but I was shocked that he said it. But he was the head of an organization that was founded with Zionist money, but catered to, young people who are the least supportive of Israel and the most likely to just go with what their values say. So when they see Israel killing thousands of people, it's pretty easy to be like, well, actually, they're the bad guys. And then that's how it is. And so he was being pressured by Zionists. It's all over. Go watch some Candace stuff about it. These things are reported and factual. He was getting tons of pressure to be certain ways about the whole Israel situation, but had decided, and it seemed like was intending to become not pro-Israel. And either they couldn't allow it, or, some mega donor took it on themselves to hire somebody. Who knows how it actually happened, but the force seems like that's where it was coming from. And the reason all this ties in with this civil war and the conservative movement is Nick Fuentes has been anti-Israel for 10 years. He's been banned and canceled from every single social media platform that there is until recently. And now that everybody is starting to wake up to the fact that he's been right about Israel, Israel, about to be America first, the name of his movement, you can't have Israel first. And people started waking up that that's the right thing. And then he goes on Tucker and tells this story about how Ben Shapiro canceled him when he was 18 years old and a freshman in college with a little show. And it basically worked. I mean, I heard of Nick Fuentes a while ago, years, but all I knew about him was that he was like too extreme for the right. He was so far right and such a racist that he didn't even have a home in the conservative movement. That's what I knew about him. So now that he is considered to be the most influential, influencer among the 18 to 25 crowd, that's really saying something. I mean, I saw a video where he was talking about, we're not going to support, in this case, he was talking about J.D. Vance, or we're not going to support you if you have anything to do with Israel. And, whether he's right or not, he thinks that he has the power to push the Republican presidential candidate out of a pro-Israel stance. And I mean, it looks like he's probably right and does have that power, but we don't know yet. So I'm not really sure. But there's a lot of, conspiracy and just crooked money, power, banking. There's a lot of stereotypes that exist because of it. And as a Christian, and this is where I always get to when I'm making a video these days, as a Christian, how do you navigate this? You see Ted Cruz try to quote the Bible and then say that his number one goal of joining the government was to help Israel. So there are a ton of people that are very pro-Israel. And it seems like the facts are God's people now, the church, means Christians. It doesn't mean the Israeli government. And there are a lot of people, because it's very lucrative, there are a lot of people that will twist it into, we're supposed to help the state of Israel. So it's very lucrative to, if you're Ted Cruz, it's very lucrative to say that Israel is God's chosen people, because he gets probably millions of dollars from doing things that are beneficial to Israel. I didn't realize it was so small. They only have 10 million citizens, and they all get free healthcare and free college. And, the number one thing to me is that all that stuff that they did, all that killing they did to, get revenge from what happened on October 7th that they had a hand in, we made all of those bombs. We support them. Not to mention, they attacked one of our ships in the 60s. I think it was like the Yom Kippur War. There's a USS Liberty. I think that that the ship had some surveillance that they hadn't been able to transmit, and they didn't want it to get back to our government, so they tried to blow it up and then later say that it was an accident or whatever. They also stole 100 pounds of uranium, and there's a couple other things, not to mention Kennedy, which, there's not proof, but there probably is. It's just in the files that haven't been released yet. So, I don't know exactly what I think. I'm trying to investigate and find out. And, I'm still trying to figure out if the world is run by a very elite little group, or if everything that happens is really just everybody looking out for their self-interest, and sometimes those are the things that happen. Some things just seem so strange that there's not a way that it could have happened that way. It just seems that way sometimes with a lot of stuff. So, the Christian aspect of things, if the Bible, if God's word, the Bible, is twisted for self-interest, that's one of the worst things you can do. I forget some of the words for some of these things. My wife is much more knowledgeable about the actual Bible, and most everything Christian. She was saved over 3 years ago, and I was just saved this last summer. So I'm still pretty new, young baby Christian, and trying to kind of find my way through all this stuff. And I'm wanting to make videos that are I'm not trying to make videos where I'm saying, hey, I'm a Christian, and please watch my Christian video. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to make Christian videos, but I'm trying to kind of analyze topics, including my faith angle on things, so that if you're not a Christian, you can watch the video just as much as a Christian would. But if you are a Christian, there's obviously going to be a part that is kind of going to align more with your worldview, being a Christian. So it seems really obvious that it's not living by any kind of, Christ-following ideals to kill thousands of innocent people for revenge for something you did, some geopolitical power stuff that doesn't really have anything to do with any of those people. There's not really any way to justify what they did and are still doing. The whole beachfront property thing, and Trump being the peace person, and all that stuff. It doesn't seem like that was all pre-planned, but it's the kind of thing where you have to ask yourself, was that all pre-planned? Are all of these incidents and events, are they all, either they have a purpose or their purpose is to distract? Whenever I see something big happen, I start looking around for other stuff that's happening at the same time and assuming that they're trying to draw attention away from the other thing. As a Christian, I try to just take every minute attempting to think of it in a Christian way. Love your neighbor, love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's the great commandment. I think it's Matthew 35:17. So, the whole God's chosen people will be blessed if we support them, all that stuff. I do not believe that has anything to do with Israel whatsoever. I have seen a lot of content that address this issue, and it seems like the prevailing and also logical situation is that those were God's chosen people, the 12 tribes, all that stuff. But once Jesus came, everything changed. and that we are all God's chosen people, basically. It isn't just the Jews, because they don't believe in Christ. And Christ definitely changed everything. Before Christ, it was, you could still be loyal to God and everything, but there was no grace. God couldn't see humans through the lens of his perfect Son, and also 1/3 of the Trinity, which is a whole nother thing that's so hard to wrap your head around using standard intuition. So once Jesus came and was perfect, and he was the king, everybody was expecting him to be some warrior to take back everything from the Romans, and he said, well, I am your king, but my kingdom is not on earth. So we do the whole love thing. And obviously there's the whole New Testament about it. So he was the fulfilling of prophecy from the Old Testament. And it basically, it was like a complete kind of start over or new paradigm, or, once Jesus was resurrected and then did all that stuff that everybody, witnessed. That is the whole reason that skeptical people like me even believe that Christ is a reasonable, thing to believe maybe happened. I didn't realize just how much proof there is. I was always one of those people that I thought, well, at the Council of Nicaea, they just basically put in there whatever should be in there in order for people in the future to believe that it really happened and stuff. To find out that all those books had already been written and had already been copied and transported around by loyal scribes and all that stuff, it's a lot more realistic than I thought possible. For 44 years of my life, I thought Christianity was kind of, at best, a crutch, and at most, population control, and had probably done more bad than good and all that stuff. I mean, how can, if somebody's born in India and they never even hear about Christianity, how is it fair for them to go to hell? I had, which I'm sure anybody watching this that's either is or was skeptical of Christianity has also thought of. But after seeing my wife go from how she was to how she was, the change that happened, and how, I don't know, there's just seeing it up close on a daily basis. And, there not being any, is she really doing this or that? I knew, because we lived together and I saw. And so I was already going to church with her, and instead of just going, I started to have an open mind. And then that's when God started working on me, as they say. And I started feeling things, which led to April 22nd, becoming officially saved, and then getting baptized in May. And it still feels weird to me to be a Christian, to say Jesus. The way my dad used to say it, my dad believed in Jesus. He always said it was like an insurance policy. If he didn't think there was a God, but if there was, he would be covered. And that made a lot of sense to me when I was younger. But I grew up and that started, I had a really weird, I was born Episcopalian, which is one step towards Baptist from Catholic. So it's, they have this thing where you get confirmed in the church. And when you're 13, you take these classes and then you're confirmed. And I just refused to go to them. I stopped walking to school with all my friends, and a lot of that stuff happened because my sister dove into a pool and broke her neck and was paralyzed for the rest of her life. And I was 12, and all of that stuff changed. But, everybody always assumes that I was really mad at God and stuff like that. I really don't think I was mad at God. I just felt really, really horrible for my sister, and it didn't seem fair. And it gave me a much different kind of feel of the world and life. And that's when everything started to fall apart. But it took the next, 20 years for me to really come to the realization that I really was a horrible drug addict and could not do drugs. And got clean a bunch of times. And, in 2012, it finally stuck. And then I had a really bad relapse, and it was even worse. And I was on dope for 5 years. And then in 2017, I was released after not being away for that long. And 30 months of probation. Had to stay clean. Didn't have a choice. I would have gone back inside. But at this point, I am in recovery from addiction as well as neurodivergent stuff. I'm also ADHD, and I still don't know which way to say it, but I was diagnosed with Asperger's in 2001, and today that's called on the spectrum autism. Autism still sounds like a word that doesn't quite fit. Like, I'm not trying to make it sound more extreme than it is, but that's what I was diagnosed with. Depression and anxiety, substance use disorder, officially, and the ADHD and the other one. And it really, I always feel like it's trying to make excuses or blame it on something. Anytime I think, well, I did this thing, but I'm ADD, so that's kind of not that surprising. I always feel like that's trying to not take responsibility. So I tend to be a lot harder on myself. And only recently have I started looking at things through the lens of, I'm neurodivergent, I really need to work on coping things and ways to get better instead of just hating myself and being mad at myself and wondering why I'm so much more of a failure than everybody else. My brain is actually quite amazing. I mean, my IQ is incredibly high. But all of the neurodivergent things make me almost non-functional in the world. I can seem so normal sometimes. But for the most part, it's substantially different than typical. So that's why I'm on here making videos, trying to find other people like me that have the same twist on the world and probably see a lot of things a similar way, and trying to make a community for somebody like me who doesn't do social very well. It's weird to be trying to make a community, but since I'm not that great at it in person, real life, usually, sometimes really good at it, but whatever. It makes sense to, try to find people this way. And I really didn't think it was going to take quite this long to, meet even more people, make even more progress, make even better videos, like however you want to look at it. I'm trying to help. And I'm also trying to, if you're somebody that what I have to say will help, then you're like me and let's be friends, kind of thing. And I consider a video a success if at least one person watches the whole thing, which I'm sure usually doesn't happen because I know I'm not very engaging. I'm just getting over being sick. My voice sounds weird now. And it's not very engaging to watch a guy walk around and talk. Unless you're like me and find this, in the right mood, that it's like, kind of, either funny, entertaining, helpful, whatever, to just listen to. So, you know, I'm trying. If I don't make them, then definitely not going to find anybody, you know? So, trying. My wife and I's goals, separately and together, are to minister to people that have neurodivergent stuff, religious trauma, you know, people that the system doesn't see, doesn't help, like us. So, I hope I went somewhere with that in a kind of meandering way that was actually somewhat, you know, logical, followable. And if you're watching this right now, like, thank you very much. I really am grateful. I hope you will, like, subscribe or comment or, like, stick around or watch another one. Like, I'm not really getting the community part. Hasn't really happened at all. So I'm just trying to have that happen. And, you know, already with not enough hours in the day, I had my shoulder replaced last year and it's healing very slowly. So I basically only have one arm, and broke my foot a couple weeks ago. Shouldn't even really be walking right now. But, you know, I got to stick to my like failure of not treating injuries right and have them get a lot worse. I got to keep that pattern up. I'm trying to not keep it up. That was kind of sarcasm. So I guess I'm going to drop it about here. Again, very, very much thank you if you're watching this. And I hope it helps somebody somehow. And until next time, this, that, or the other.